Every journey begins with the first step. In this journey of making the bells, this is the first step. Approximately an ounce and a half of silver has been put into the crucible to the left, and I'm heating up the mold on the right hand side. And now you can see that the silver is melting in the crucible. It's about ready to be poured. I have it with some tongs, and here it goes, being poured right into the mold. Now it's time to take the silver ingot out of the mold once it's dried. Come down to almost room temperature. After the ingot is made, we then put it through the rolling mill and keep making it thinner and thinner and thinner until we get to the desired thickness. And here's a square ingot that was cast in the same manner, but we only use a 1/4 ounce of silver at a time for that. And here we are now putting it through the other side of the rolling mill, which has grooves in it. And what it does is it makes square wire, and you can see it keeps getting smaller and smaller and smaller as you keep putting it through the smaller and smaller grooves of the rolling mill. And here we are now, when we got it to the right thickness, on the outside of the rolling mill are interchangeable dies. And there has to be a die on this one, which makes it half round. You can see it's half round wire, similar to a real thin wedding band. And now here we are with the process called annealing, while we're now softening this metal. Because this half round wire is what goes around the circumference of the bell and ties the two bells together. It's a very important process. And now here we are with the silver sheet that we milled down to the proper sequence, and we are now using a template and scribing out a circle. Because that's how these bells started. They started flat, as flat little circles, little discs. And now this seam, I'm using my saw frame to cut out the circles from the sheet. Now here these circles have been cut out, and since they've been put through the rolling mill, they're hard. So we annealed them, and here's the end product, a little disc that's now laying inside what we call a dapping block. And if you notice, there's a punch, and then there's concave openings correspondingly. And this is the beginning stage, and we use a hammer to really start getting it smaller, and we form it into these little half spheres. And at this point we are now annealing them again, because we've got them up to a certain point, but we have to get them a little further, so they've been cold worked inside the dapping block, therefore they have to be annealed once again. And here we are. I had cut out certain strips of silver the same length, so they're all the same size, and by melting it we make little balls, and these are going to be the balls that are inside the bells, which make the sound. And here we are now. We had put the two halves of the sphere together, and I have the half round wire around the perimeter, and we are soldering it together. And of course there's also a small ring has been put on the top to hang it from the cachottes. It's very important that the soldering is complete all the way around, that there's a bead of solder holding the whole thing together. And with the bell up, you'll notice there's a slit and two holes, one hole on the either end of the slit. That is also done with that saw frame that I cut them out in. That was just a pickling process. Now here we are wrapping the nickel silver wire, heavy gauge nickel silver wire, around a mandrel to make a coil. And now that coil is now being cut with that same saw frame that I cut the discs out in to make rings. Each one of those, and here it is, the finished product being rung, and the nickel silver jump ring is what's going to attach it to the cachottes. And you can see that the four on the top are the ones that we made, and the rest were already on there because each bell Each one was missing 4 bells respectively. There's supposed to be 12, and now there is 12 on each one. And here's the end of the journey.